These last few days, we've been doing a lot of exercises in self-exploration. There have been moments when I have had this thought that, am I being too self-indulgent? Am I going to now spend many, many years just ripping myself to pieces? Or is there a cutoff point where you say, no more analysis, just get on with your life? So I'm not very clear about that. I mean, how deep do we dig?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a really good point, and maybe also we could talk a little bit about how you've experienced that, and when I'll say a few sort of theoretical things, and then if you want to, we can talk a little bit about how you've experienced that tension, or not, whatever you're comfortable with. Part of an integral approach obviously involves 4 quadrants. It involves work in the world, involves being able to go out and be effective and carry the awareness that you're cultivating in places like this into the world where it's going to have a difference. And one of the first things that you learn when you start to do that is it seems to be hard to do that. And so if all we did was sort of really just pay attention to we really work in the upper left quadrant mostly in these kinds of things, because we want to try to ground certain things there that you can then, first of all, make real in yourself and then carry out into the world. Now, we have to be really careful because every path has a downfall, and its downfall is always its strength. I mean, that's it's one of God's little jests. You know, the brighter the light, the darker the shadow, and all the 10 cliches you've heard about, all that stuff. But it's true. It's really true. And one of the difficulties here is that you can't really do effective work in the world until you have a world-centric level of consciousness. Otherwise, really what's happening, the last thing you want is an ethnocentric group of people deciding to go do work in the world. They've done that before. It's called Auschwitz and Wounded Knee and Gulag, and So work in the world per se is not necessarily a good thing. So we run a thin line between getting our own consciousness to a point where it's worthy to do work in the world. And Terry was talking about ethics. And ethics is just that. Ethics is what is an action that is just when I treat other human beings and other sentient beings. And how can I justify that action? And one of the reasons that I like Carol Gilligan's work, in a different voice, she wrote a book, incidentally, almost entirely misunderstood. But she traced the development of female moral development. And the question that she generally asked was about abortion. Does a woman have a right to abortion? And she found different answers to it, and she categorized the answers. And she found 3 stages in that book, and she later added a 4th. And, again, stages can be subdivided and so on. And so these 4 were very generic. I love the terms that she used, because this is applying to women now. First stage was called selfish. Second stage was called care. Third stage was called universal care. And 4th was integrated. And all of them are so telling. I mean, I love the way second stage is called care, because that's a good thing. You go, yes, I'm going from selfish to care. But then you realize that that's really ethnocentric care. In other words, her 4th stage are really egocentric, ethnocentric, world-centric, integrated, or cosmocentric. And so the question would be, when do we feel that we can go into the world and do good works? And I would say when we feel we can do it from a world-centric or from a universal care or higher. And so don't feel bad if you're doing work on yourself in order to do that. Because I think that's exactly the kind of work that has to be done terms of carrying it out. The strength and the weakness, that we can obviously overdo it and just do so much work on the self that it really becomes just self-absorbed at some point. So we have to be judged by whether the work we do here actually does issue in fruit, ethical works and good actions in the world. And that's why we hope that that's the case when we do Integral University and the outreach programs that way, that we are trying to take this action and this awareness into the world, get feedback, adjust it, continue to work on ourselves, but also carry it into the world. If we don't carry it into the world, then something is wrong. Yeah, but in the meantime, I think it's really important to give yourself permission to go ahead and do that. Yeah.